tragic, really painful, and really, I guess I would say definitely affected people, even if you didn't know the person directly.
Mhm.
So, what do you say to the folks who are like, why is everybody so upset about people that they don't even know personally?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks so much for having me, Dr. Alana. We should have been doing this a long time ago, and I'm look forward to having you on as a guest in my podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity. What's interesting about grief is that it happens in all shapes and forms. We all have a sense of grief, whether we know someone or we don't. And to answer your question, when we grieve someone we don't know, and it's okay to do that. You're something's not wrong with you if you're grieving someone that you don't know, and for so many reasons. One is that we connect with that person on some sort of level. So whether you're an athlete, a fan, a basketball player, you connected with someone who's just great at the gift, of basketball, right? And Kobe often shared how important basketball was to his life, right? And so you're connecting with someone who just putting all this time and energy into his career, and it was also his hobby, right? It was Basketball was his life. And
Mhm.
so a lot of times people, we call it kind of classical conditioning, I guess, in psychiatry. We condition ourselves, and that's a part of how we connect to something or someone that we don't know. I think also a huge indicator when talking to people about Kobe's passing, or anyone for that matter who don't know, is that it's a trigger. And sometimes, if we're going or have experienced some sort of grief, or we are grieving, his death could have been definitely a trigger, uncovering wounds, kind of deepening the wounds, and knowing and understanding
Mhm.
the love that that his wife and his girls that are still here living. Sometimes we connect with that. We connect with how he died. We connect with what he meant to us, the world, so on and so forth. So there's so many connections that we can find, especially with people we don't know. Yeah.
Sure. I think I was looking at an article recently about that someone wrote about Black men grieving. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in particular, this was a really interesting situation because often I think men are told they're not supposed to have emotions, that it's weak to cry, that there's something wrong with them if they are feeling intense emotions and they suppress or they try to tough it out, like, just not allowing that release. And what I think this has been one of those unique situations where people are allowing themselves to show emotions and express that this is really painful.
Yeah.
And I saw articles about all of the people who have, not all of the people, but a lot of celebrities and other people who are connected to Kobe, Shaq, and
Yeah.
just all of the folks that have, and they're just expressing that
Mhm.
they're hurting from this. So I think this is really, for me, this is why I really reinforce things like understanding that you have an amygdala, the part of your brain that creates your emotions, right? Like
Mhm.
it never stops. It doesn't matter if you're male or female,
Right.
or however you identify. It
Mhm.
doesn't, if you're human, you have a freaking amygdala.
Yes.
And you also have a somatosensory cortex, the area of your brain that experiences pain.
Mhm.
So physical and emotional pain generate very similar signals and experiences inside of your body. So when
Right.
people think about all of those connections that you mentioned, like, wow, in one of the articles they talked about how Kobe's just a little bit older than me, so I grew up seeing Kobe play, and I honestly was not a huge Kobe fan. I would
Mhm.
get mad at him because he was, he's so arrogant and a bomb. I was like, man, oh,
You
like,
amongst
but
many.
right,
Right.
but you know what? I got to see him grow over
Yeah.
the course of his career.
Yes.
And I also was, when he had the sexual assault allegations years back, I was disappointed. I
Mhm.
was, disgusted by the behavior and the information. And I also saw that they resolved the criminal case. He was not convicted,
Mhm.
and he apologized. And it's a rare thing to actually see somebody say, what I thought was consensual. That's a whole nother conversation that we need to have about sex and how we interact surrounding sex. But what I thought was consensual was not to her. And at the end of the day, he apologized for it. He settled whatever that settlement was. I'm assuming he probably took care of her for a long time. And we don't know how she might feel about it. Because at a certain point, she may have transitioned from this being something that was so awful that happened to her to being able to work on things and go to therapy and really see it as something that potentially could have been a long-term blessing. It's really, that's the thing about trauma. It's all about how you think about it and what part of the story you focus on, how you tell yourself, what you tell yourself about people's stories. So any thoughts on that?
Yes. I mean, you threw out a lot of nuggets there. One thing that I always, we can never be prepared for grief, and it's not depression. Depression is something completely different from grieving. We can't treat this with an antidepressant. And I often use that as an analogy when people come in and they've lost a job, lost a loved one, such a sense of loss of whatever that is, and they're sad about it. Right. This is not a chemical imbalance. This is not related to that. This is related to life and reality. And the thing about grief and how I've dealt with it, because I've lost my mother, I've lost two of my grandparents within a 6-week period I was close to every single person. And ironically, my mom's death prepared me for my grandparents' death, which is ironic, is that you have to, in order to heal from it, you have to feel it. And I think that we're often taught that we should retract from it, and retraction brings along isolation. And that's not a good place to be. And so when we grieve, everyone's going to grieve at some point in their lives, regardless if they lost a pet, a loved one, or even a job, right? But at the end of the day, we all die, right? And so oftentimes grief is connected to the sense of loving someone, the sense of losing someone. And so the thing about it is that in order to heal from it, we have to feel it. We can't avoid it. We can't suppress it. It becomes something different. When we suppress it, it can become anxiety. It can become insomnia. It becomes depression. And then oftentimes we're also told, well, when are you going to get over this? Get over it and let her go, let him go. And you can't, you can go forward, but you can't let someone go. You're letting go of the memories, the joyous moments, and even the sorrowful moments that you had that made you even love them even more because you worked through those moments. And so, I often talk about my mom. I share her all the time on Facebook, my grandparents, when they have an anniversary or birthday, because I want people to know that this was someone meaningful to me, and also connect with others to encourage them to share about the people that they lost, because they will never be gone. They'll always be here. And I think that has been a part of my healing, Alana, and dealing with my mom. I have a picture of her, like right here. And so when I go to work every day, I see her. And this is not bad. It's not bad to have memories of your loved ones wherever you feel that are comforting you, because I know she's with me. And, she hasn't seen this part of my life, but this is her way, my way of showing her, even though it may not. Yeah. And so, grief can be a blessing. And I think one thing I want to say about Kobe is that I'm working on a tribute to him, because I am the same age as him. I've connected with Kobe all throughout his life. I'm a huge sports fan. I'm not a Laker fan. I used to be. And so, but the thing about Kobe is that, and the loss of everyone that unfortunately perished in this traumatic accident, was that Shaq, Dwayne Wade, all these sports figures that you're talking about, and not even them. If you look at LA right now, people are out there showing their love, support for someone that they loved and they cherished in their own way, is that it brings people together. It reconnects people. I've heard people say, I want to spend more time with my children, as a result, because this is a reminder that we just don't know. And everyone thinks that we're going to all grow old, and that's not the reality. And we have to talk about that. We have to talk about that. And in talking about that, we prepare for it. But we also, try to prepare for death in a way where we're not anticipating it, but we want to prepare for it for our loved ones, right? We want to prepare for it for our own sake. And that also may lead to living a life at your best and doing things that you've always wanted to do. So, Yeah, it's very interesting how grief happens. And sometimes I relate it to fear, anxiety, but as long as you manage it and you have people around you to help you manage it, you can. You can.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Wow, you hit so many nuggets in there. I definitely I want to reinforce the idea of healthy grieving versus depression and that type of thing, because a lot of people want medications, and when they start feeling something because they're feeling that pain. So first of all, backing up, how you think about something and someone, especially loss, will directly dictate your emotions in the moment, right? So, like,
Right.
when I think about, I can tear up in a second. Every time I had to log off of social media for a minute and give myself a break, because I was riding that roller coaster of like, oh my gosh, I saw the picture with him holding her up and she was about to dunk the son in the basketball.
That's the picture I'm actually going to use for my tribute. I'm still trying to get over that picture. You're exactly right. Oh my God.
But that made me think, wow, we've lost we lost a great person, we lost a child. Like, immediately my mind, we lost 7 people tragically. There's so many tragedies linked in this. When you get, the more of the story that we get, the more, it's like, what, there are safety precautions that could have been on the helicopter that were, there's just so many bits and pieces to this that are just sad.
Yeah.
So when I think about Vanessa and the girls and the survivors of the people that we lost, I instantly get choked up, feel tightness,
Yeah.
want to cry.
Mhm.
And then I might think, what if I lose my child? What if something happened to my loved ones? What if something happened to my significant other? Those type of things. That provokes a predictable response from the body, which is sadness. And for some people, if you don't allow yourself to actually feel those feelings and acknowledge them, what happens is that it's sort of like packing a closet full of stuff and you're just stuffing all that stuff back. No, I gotta stay busy. I gotta get to this work thing. I gotta do this stuff. Like, you're taking your mind off of it, but it's still in the back of your mind, building up, building up, building up. And so if you don't allow yourself to release and acknowledge those emotions, they tend to come out sideways, like irritability, snappiness, negativity, sarcasm, and then possibly blowing up. Like, so instead of, I tell people, give yourself periods of time to feel your feelings and let them out, whether it's crying, whether it's just having a moment of silence or reverence or meditation or prayer. Like, give yourself the time to sit with those feelings and acknowledge them so that they don't blow up on the people around you, because you actually haven't processed them. So, we talk about the stages of grief and run through those 5 stages of grief, because I think it's important for people to understand that, for one, it comes in waves, and it's not like you grieve and then done, right? You grieve, and then you feel a little better, and then you circle back around to it. Then you feel a little better, and you might feel multiple things at once. So we talked about the stages being 1, denial; 2, anger; 3, bargaining; 4, depression; 5, acceptance. But I would even say that they don't always come in that exact order.
They don't.
And they don't always stay in that exact order. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I agree. It's not this linear fashion where you have 5 stages and then it ends in a year. Grief, I see it differently. I think that it's lifelong. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's how we deal with it that matters. I often have periods of yearning for my mom, but it's not the depressive periods that I have. It's more of the loving periods now. And I think that these 5 stages should not necessarily be kind of be reevaluated. I think that we should expound upon grief a little bit more. And I know the reason why we haven't is because we haven't really done studies on grief, right? There's very little studies on grief, right? We're not going to really put ethically people who are grieving in studies and try to ask questions. I mean, that's just unethical. But you know, when we look at grief and we look at people who overcome grief, you know, I see those stages, and you're right, Alana. They're not linear. They don't come and go. I mean, they do come and go. They come and go in waves, right? Like a roller coaster, right? Often people describe them as, you know, huge waves that can drown you, consume you. But I think that I'm in a point of when I've lost 3 people that are very close to me, even more, you know, but of my intermediate family, that now I see love. And I think, you know, how I look at grief is kind of, it's like the unfulfilling need that's not going to ever be met again. And it could be very frustrating, but I also see it as love now. So instead of an emptiness, I'm grieving someone that I've loved. And so that's how it helps, you know, with healing. It's not an emptiness. It's this is why I'm doing. This is my response. It's my reaction. That's why you think about your daughter. You think about the family members that are close to you, your friends, your loved ones, because you know the connection, the experience you have with them, right? Who they meant to you, what meaning did they bring to your life, and so that's why we grieve so hard, you know. And so I agree with you. We have to embrace it in order to help us heal, because if we don't, it can become a consequence. And all those things that you described, irritability and depression and anxiety, can often be displaced. And when they're displaced, that's not good. You know, they be displaced on our loved ones, ourselves. You know, we don't sleep, we don't eat. And they can become something different for us. So, you know, I welcome us to, and I'm glad we're having this discussion. I thought it was an awesome idea that you brought up this idea of discussing that, because I think that if we see things in a different perspective, it really will help people move on, not just for someone we don't know, but from someone we do. You know, we see grief and loss in traumatic situations. I know you're the expert on that. Things that happen to us, things we know happen to other people. I mean, we can go on and on with that, but we need to start embracing it. And part of that is talking about it.
Absolutely. I've spent my career at the VA. And so honestly, I've learned what I know of grief and loss, you know, more from talking to my veterans than reading books and, you know, learning in classwork, because I've seen what healthy looks like and I've seen what unhealthy looks like. And, you know, unhealthy often look like, I mean, when they would be approaching a time of year when something happened, like the anniversary of it, their mind starts thinking about it a lot. They ruminate about the same thing. They start thinking through the scenarios again. They start thinking, you know, it should have been me, or I should have done this, or I should have done that, or what if I had done X, Y, and Z, almost trying to rewrite what's already happened, which is it makes you feel very powerless, because you're trying to do something that's literally impossible, which is change the past. And then they, you know, ruminate about, well, I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve to have a life. I don't deserve to, you know, there's a lot of stuff that they're telling themselves that's, one, painful to themselves, but also, two, it keeps them stuck in that grief space, right? Where you're trying to rehash and redo. So one of the things that, you know, I tell people for healthy grieving is acceptance, right? Radical acceptance. When you find yourself going through that shoulda, woulda, couldas, I call it, you know, shoulding yourself, right? Little poo emoji. I picture, look at you, you're shitting yourself. You're shitting yourself left and right. I see your question. So you can't necessarily not get triggered. However, you can recognize when you're triggered and then think your way outside of that triggering. So I look at triggering as like, think about shitty, right? SHITY, subjective, harsh, intense, terrorizing to yourself thinking, right? I should have done this. It's like Kobe's situation is tragic. So let's take, for example, all of these people who are focusing on the rape allegation from years ago, 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's because their RAS, their reticular activating system, that part of your brain that filters what you pay attention to, if they've been assaulted before or know somebody who has, or that, you know, maybe that they haven't really, like, they're not looking at Kobe as a whole person who had good, bad, which I think all of us could benefit from doing more, instead of black and white thinking, only focus on one part of the person or the other. See, everybody, you know, I don't care who you are glorifying, they were great and wonderful to somebody, and they also were great and horrible to somebody as well. And so everyone has multiple layers within them. I tell everybody, you got a little angel, a little demon in you. You know, you're going in, right? But when we look at things from a whole perspective, and we can see, like, that person may have had wonderful traits and negative traits and things that happened in their life, but as a whole, what was their mark on the world? What was their gift in this life? What did they do for, you know, what was their overall space that they operated in? And then you can kind of see them in a bigger picture type of format, in a bigger way. And so I tell people to use DONE, be descriptive, objective, non-judgmental, and effective in your thinking. And that really can help you walk your way out of that trigger thinking. So it's like, you know, oh, I you know, stand this person. I can't stand this situation. I hate them. They're horrible. Like, there are people who have relatives that die, and they're in a bad space because that person may have abused them. That person, like, it might be your mother or father or whatever else, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their death is, like, people expect when somebody dies that you might feel sad about it. There are people who folks die and they're like, glad. I'm, you know, they tortured me. I had a horrible relationship with them. And then they might feel guilty about not feeling bad about certain things. So there is no right way to feel about any of this stuff, right? It's really about yourself and saying, this is just how I feel about it.
Exactly. Wow, there was a lot of things there too. And, you know, I think that the acronyms that you use broke it down to a way where you're right. I mean, and I think that's what people need. People need a way to help them grieve. But the best way I can see people helping them grieve is telling us how we can help you grieve. You know, I don't know if you're like this, Alana, but sometimes it's hard to you know, engage with someone who's lost a loved one, because for people it's hard to know what to say, right? And so you see the same things over and over again, which is okay. You know, praying for you and you know, your time of grief and your time of bereavement. Right, emoji, right? You know, and that's great, because you know that tells that person that's grieving that you're there, right? So that's a form of you telling them that you're there. But I also charge people, like you're saying, you know, how do we deal with grief? And you gave some wonderful acronyms how to work through that, and these are some practicalities that you can consider whenever you get to a point of grief. Is that we as grievers, so whenever you're grieving, you know, share with people how you can help them, and maybe start by talking about what you're grieving or who you're grieving, and tell them what they mean to you. And so, you know, and people are there to listen, right? And they want to support you in that. And so it's not a bad idea to do that. The other thing that I found in just kind of grief, and please, Alana, see if you agree with this, is that for me, you know, my mom actually did a ritual every Christmas. That was her favorite holiday. It was around her birthday. We traveled instead of exchanging gifts. That's why I got my sense of traveling from. That's why I travel a lot. And so, you know, people see me travel, they look at that perception differently. I'm traveling because I love it, but also for my mom.
Yeah.
And then I your mom. Father. Yeah. And so, you know, that's become our ritual now. And so we're honoring her while we're still living life. And it's okay to move forward. You're not leaving them behind. You're not letting them go. you're moving forward. So when you do have triggers, Sherelle, and one of our question was, how can we help to not activate triggers? I don't think there's a way to not activate triggers. Triggers will come. They may come in different intensities, different fluctuations, different periods, different frequencies. They might have, one of my triggers came when I heard about Kobe and all the others that were on board of the helicopter. That was another trigger for me. But I've actually been able to work in therapy and work in grief therapy specifically, and how I can manage these triggers so they do not interfere with my functioning. But so they
hold on, friend. Pause for one moment. I think they need to hear it one more time. Hey, Dr. Erica, how are you? Thank you for joining us. But I wanted to let me rewind for 1 second, because you said something important in your own therapy.
In my own therapy that I still go to monthly.
Everybody needs therapy.
Oh,
go to somebody.
Yes.
People are like, do you recommend therapy? Do you think I need to go to therapy? I'm like, you don't need to ask me that anymore, because the answer is yes.
Yes.
Why is it yes? Because all of us we're subject to seeing the world through our own little small lens. Like, that's just how we're designed, right? Like, spiritual being having a human experience, and I'm only privy to the perspective that my body and my biology can give me. And so my own thoughts, they're generated by this primitive animal biology that's negative in nature, that's fear driven in nature, that's hey Marcus, that's pain, generates pain. So just knowing that we start from a space of having a tendency to focus on the things that are more hurtful or painful, because that's just by design. Biologically, our body's just always trying to stay ahead of getting hurt and getting, experiencing pain. But at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that having someone that you can talk to that's removed from the situation, that can help be done with trauma thinking, descriptive, objective, non-judgmental, and effective about things in your life. That person is like talking to friends and family. They just want you to feel better. They'll go, oh, you're okay.
You'll be all right. And it will. Yeah. It's
right. People hand you a drink. They hand you some weed. They hand you, they hand you what they use to cope, which could be, food, sugar, or sugar addictions. Like, we have all of these external ways of trying to calm the internal storm and cope with those painful emotions. But that means that before we even have, like, we don't even have a healthy representation of what someone passing and cultural rituals. I'm sure they have them in some ethnicities and some cultures, but really overall in America, we see death as such a destructive thing. We see death as such nobody's supposed to die. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, like, well, you're too young to have the health challenges that I have. I'm like, why do we have children's hospitals?
Exactly.
All throughout their lifespan. So this expectation.
Yeah, and I don't want to break your thought. I'm so sorry. I just really want to speak to it. Please, because I think that and this is not a pessimistic view. This is the reality. We all see ourselves growing old, right? Think about that. Let that simmer. And so that's what we use as comparison. You're too young to die. You're too young to have this. You're too young to do that. You're too young to do all these positive things. Because we always look at our life as age and time and all these things. And the issue about it is that
it's not reality.
Able to get to be elderly, right?
Right.
And so instead of focusing on that, let us focus on life. Let us focus on living. Yes. Let us focus on loving the ones that are no longer here. Those are the things that we need to do to move forward. And I'm glad you said that, because, I also heard, well, why him and this, and why my aunt and why my mom, and you know, and as a Christian, I think of this differently as well. You know, I involve my religion in this, and you know, my ultimate goal is to get to heaven. But while I'm here on earth, I want to be the best, you know, version of me, right? I want to make sure that I'm able to do the things that I've set out for, and that's to be, you know, the optimal person I can, to help people that I can, and to live a fulfilling life, a balanced life. You know, those are the only three things, goals, and everything falls underneath those goals. But I know that it's going to be my time, and I don't know when that time's going to be. I'm not worried about that. I'm not concerned about it because I'm so focused on living. And I think that we need to wrap our mind around that, because I think that that can eliminate, or, you know, alleviate depression and anxiety. And, you know, I have this chronic illness and this and that and the other. Why don't we focus on living so you can eat better, you can exercise, you can take care of that, you know what I'm saying? Let's focus on and
Girl, made me throw some at this screen. We preaching in here today.
Come at you a while ago too. Come on now, you know, and I think we can talk about this, one, because we've experienced it in some fashion or form. Our loss doesn't have to be the same. It can be our loss to us, you know, how we've, you know, experienced it. And secondly, because we are psychiatrists, right? And of course, I'm sure that you're more privy to hearing these type of stories and helping, you know, individuals who walk into your office and talk about it. So I can only imagine what those sessions are like. But at the end of the day, we have to continue to have these conversations outside. We have to learn that just because of how our grandmama did it, how our mama did it, you know, whoever, like you saying, I don't want to drink when I'm grieving, I don't want weed when I'm grieving. You know, we have to find healthy ways so we can actually deal with it instead of avoiding it. We have to do that. We have to.
Yes. And healthy ways. You know, put some time aside to talk about it, right?
Yes.
So one thing you can do is put time aside, find other like-minded people to discuss that person with, whether it's, you know, this is a holiday ritual and we're going to honor this person. We have some pictures, a little memorial set up, you know, that some people are more, have ancestor areas in their house where they can honor their ancestors and shrines and things like that to their loved ones. That's one way that you can talk about it. One way that you can help yourself do this in a healthy way. Another thing that you can do is sit down and be intentional. Like sometimes there's things that people feel like have not been said or that they would like to say to a person. Well, if you really believe, I think most of us believe that our spirit is an eternal aspect of ourselves, even though we don't always apply that when we're thinking about death in real time. But if we're mindful of our design and being spiritual beings, then we have to also accept that if I still need to think about or express something and that person is in a spiritual realm, then they're still able to absorb that information or participate in that with me. So if I write a letter, for example, or I make a journal entry, or I sit down and just type something up, a statement or something that I want to say to that person, then that still allows me to express and process something that's internal that I need to get out. A lot of people, they say that they have beliefs in afterlife and you know, they have those spiritual beliefs, but then they don't think that the person is still connected to them or still cares or still is accessible to them. And I think that's also kind of a damaging way to think about something, you know, in that person is now just, that not only is their body gone, but their spirit is gone. But I tell people that person is here with you in your spirit. If that's, you know, would they want to see you so sad? Would they want to see you torturing yourself? Would they want to see you unhappy, depressed? I have a friend who had a tragic situation. Her friend was shot when they were in a club, like next to her. And so the next 10, 15 years of her life, she was operating with this mentality of like, I should have been the one that died. And basically self-sabotaging, realizing she was self-sabotaging because she felt like that she should not be happy because this friend is dead. So a part of her died along with this friend because she saw it as like, that's her way of making amends for whatever she saw as her part in that situation. So we do a lot of mental gymnastics and a lot of self-torment surrounding death and loss. And it's really about how we think about it that actually programs us to, well, I'm going to pass up that opportunity because she didn't have the opportunity to do something like that. So I'm not going to take that big leap of faith and take that big, great paying job because she's passed. Now, people can do that for years and can die in that space. Literally.
Right.
So, recognizing where grief and pain becomes a stuck point, or what we might call complicated grief, right? So where there's grief is different for different cultures, different belief systems. There's different ways that you're supposed to mourn people, but it can get to the point where people have severe symptoms and they get into actual clinical depression or even suicidal ideation, wanting to die, wishing that they went with that person. Can you speak a little bit about how you recognize when you're getting into like, okay, this is not just grief, this is getting complicated and this is getting to where I really need to talk to somebody?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good question, that we need to distinguish what's grief and what's something different. So when we think about clinical depression or complicated grief that can result in that, I think of how we're living prior to and the changes that have occurred after the grief, right? Or when we're grieving, excuse me. So that would be, me grieving the loss of someone or something, but then I'm not sleeping well. I'm getting 2 hours of sleep, or I'm sleeping 12 hours of the day. I'm not eating anymore. I'm isolating myself. I'm, have school refusal, or I'm not going to work at all. I don't want to talk to anybody, and I'm a social person, right? Or I don't want to take a shower because I've been in the bed for 3 days and this is where I want to be. These are some changes in your daily functioning that you can start to notice when someone is developing depression or depressive symptoms as a result of a complicated grief. And so these are things that we want to take note of, because they are not typical symptoms of grief. They are symptoms of depression as a result of a complicated grief. Okay. And that's why I think it's important that we acknowledge grief so it doesn't get to that point. And so, we can start treating depression, right? But it's complicated because the trigger that's causing it is the complicated grief. So it can become a vicious cycle if you're treating the depression. Okay.
Vicious cycle.
Vicious cycle. You treat depression, but you haven't acknowledged the grief. And so, we definitely want to acknowledge that. So, what we have to do is we have to sleep, we have to eat, and we're social beings, right? In our own right, but it's how that person's lifestyle, daily functioning has changed for like these dramatic, things. So those are some signs that, you should notice when it becomes something different. Yeah.
Yes. So, and definitely if you are finding yourself, I tell people that one of the biggest problems that I see in this world today is that we really are an emotionally incompetent species. I hate to say it like that, but what I mean is that we have no education system for emotions and what they do to our thought processes, what they do to our bodies, and it drives me girl, listen, it drives me up a wall because I'm like, I can see how emotions are very powerfully pushing people in their decision making, and how I see people as walking amygdalas, right? Like, like you like you see The Walking Dead, I watch Walking Amygdalas, and I can see how much, if you don't understand your brain and your body and your emotions, how much they will drive your behaviors and drive your perspective on things. And you have to know how to pop that bubble and be able to kind of like put your body in neutral and be like, okay, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling embarrassed, I'm feeling disgusted, I'm feeling abandoned, I'm feeling afraid, because fear is at the base of most of these things. Like the things that we're most reactive to and the things that we're most vicious about are really born in fear of, your own death, fear of loss, fear of like, even when it comes to love, the minute that we love someone, we're afraid to lose that love.
That's
And
right.
so a lot of people get into this protective mode when they lose somebody. Like, I don't want to be so connected to other people again, because then I might end up hurting if I lose them. And that mentality and that fear of feeling your emotions and actually being willing to accept that those emotions happen really can get you stuck from being able to get out of the grief process, or even being able to move on in a healthy way in your life. I don't want to use the term move on, because like you said, you don't really ever 100% move on, but to be able to live a healthy life after loss. Ooh, that's a good one. Live a healthy life after loss.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to be willing to experience emotions and ride that roller coaster. But I tell people, like, the reason that our roller coaster is so extreme is because our thinking is so extreme. So if I tell myself, this is horrible, and any day I could die, and I'm thinking about it as like, oh, this is so horrible, and that pervades my thought process, that's going to color how I make my choices and decisions as I go about in my life. But if I can think to myself, it's possible at any time that any of us could leave the house and not make it home safely. That's one of the biggest undiscussed blessings that we have, is just waking up in the morning, breathing, leaving your home and come back, or not dying in your home, damn it. Like all of us, that's a blessing every day that you can count on your gratitude list. So that's another thing you can do, is make a gratitude list. And every day, especially in the morning, first thing in the morning, number of paper 1 through 10 and write down 10 things. And it can be as simple as, I'm breathing, I woke up, I can try again today to get healthy, to get past my traumas, to live well. And being alive always means that there's an opportunity for healing, for happiness. But a lot of people have convinced themselves that they can't change, that it can't be any different, that death is right around the corner, and they live that way. So it's almost like they're dying before they even actually get a chance to live. And that is where grief really can get stuck. So thinking about it in terms of, yes, I'm sad that this person has passed. Like, I look at Kobe, like, I can look at the whole picture. As a trauma psychiatrist, I'm very sensitive to people that have gone through sexual assault. But I'm sensitive on both sides of it, because I have seen how both people who are survivors and perpetrators have experienced traumas and painful things that have them even in that space that happens to them. So, the legal system and all that stuff, I can think about all that about Kobe. And I can also think about, okay, this man had an amazing legacy. He did great things for people, not only in basketball, but outside of basketball. He was an amazing father. His wife clearly loved each other. And I didn't live their life, so I don't have to deal with their choices. So it's like, we're so judgmental. About that. Like that. We love to ride that roller coaster of judgment.
It's interesting you say that, because the judgment comes with how you just said it, how who's ever passed, who's ever died, lived their life. But we're also judgment about the people who grieve them. And I'm like, how can you judge people who grieve? Because they're not grieving your way, because it's uncomfortable for you, because they're triggering you, so we need to stop that. There's no period, as long as it's healthy, that grief is going to happen. There's no end period to that. There's no way of how people, I know people who actually, like, my father lives in the same house that we grew up in, not I grew up in, excuse me, but that's been the majority of my life in, and he has pictures of my mom everywhere. And initially I was concerned, right? But then he taught me that, Dawn, this is actually how I'm grieving. It's okay for me to see her when I wake up in the morning and when I start her day, when I go to this room. This is how I'm okay with it. But I'm still, and my dad's very social and he still remains social. So, it's how we want to grieve. That's how we choose to grieve. It's how we will grieve and how we shall grieve as long as it's healthy. So we should stop judging people and how they grieve, because I know you, Dr. Lana, I know you're not having a prescription of how a person grieves, right? You're more concerned about how they're grieving and if it's interfering with their functioning and if it is becoming something else, or is it some way they're actually working through life to, in a healthy manner of having life after grief. I love that. I love how you coined that, because that's what we should focus on. That is so important while we are living and remembering our loved one that's passed on. We can do both. We can do
absolutely both. We can do both. Absolutely. So, and I know we could go on for days, but we'll wrap it up, girl. We'll have to do another one. I like but I want to end on the idea of just needing more empathy in the world, right? I am an empathy champion. I believe that empathy can, not only can heal trauma, will heal trauma. And the reason that I say that is because, this is a great example of how we deal with traumas every day, and every time I turn on my social media right now, I'm prone to get traumatized by some news of some horrible shit going on in the world, or some picture, some statement, some painful event that really, makes me just want to shut down and shut out the whole world. But I also recognize, like you said, we're social creatures. We're connected. We and in order to grieve and be healthy, we have to practice more empathy, because empathy allows us to really see something from another person's perspective. And it's a choice. It's a skill. It's something you can learn to do. You don't naturally do it. Naturally, we're self-centered. We're very, everybody's got a little narcissism where our version of reality, we think that is the reality. Right. And then we tell everybody else, like, my version, me right. Didn't do it. Me right, you wrong. So I use the love skill is how I help people to remember empathy. So I'll just go through it really quickly one time. LOVE. L, listen and look with suspended judgment. Put your little version on off to the side. We know what you think about it, but put it off to the side for a minute. O, observe the emotions in yourself and the other person. It is vitally important that we start to put words and actual expressive intent on understanding our emotions. It's the language of the soul. It's an invisible channel that runs in between us. It's not, that person may be sitting there smiling, but they're feeling something on the inside, and having actual accurate interpretation of what you're feeling and what they're feeling is important information in how you address anything with that person. V, validate the differing and equal perspectives of all parties involved. Everybody's version is valid.
That's right.
And one way to help anybody who's experiencing trauma, you don't have to be a psychiatrist, you don't have to be trained in any way, to simply validate how the other person feels. Instead of telling them to feel different, instead of telling them to get over it, instead of just hitting them with the thoughts and prayers, be able to say, like, I can understand why you feel that way. I'm asking questions that I can just say, I know that hurts. I know that's painful. I feel different about it, but I respect how you feel about it. And that's okay for you to feel that way. You don't have to be coming from the same point as me. So validate. It's like a salve for the soul of any traumatized person that may be expressing something painful to you. Just acknowledge that their version of reality is valid. And then lastly, E, express yourself skillfully, creator. Find better words.
Yeah.
Damn it. better words, find better facial expressions, find better gestures, find, like, you're creating at all times. You never stop creating. Your body doesn't disappear when your emotions get to going all over the place and you get to saying all kinds of ish to other people. They experience you even when you're not fully accurately experiencing yourself. So keep in mind that you are the creator of the experience that you will have, and how you wrestle your emotions, your biology, your internal pain, your traumas is going to directly dictate how well what you create and the outcomes of that interaction that you're having with that other creator. So LOVE, love more. Is love in action.
Bam! Love it. Let me drop a mic somewhere. Let me drop a couple, because you just broke it all the way. I love it.
All right. Anything else you want to say to close us out?
No, not after that. Like all the nuggets you just dropped there, it encompass everything about how we should approach grief, and how we should just approach, not even grief, how we should approach the world, our people, our community. We should approach everyone with love. We should. And so I love that mnemonic. Ooh, you gotta put that in the comment section, Alana, because all the mnemonics you said today, I think they're amazing for people to understand, especially in those moments. I love to use mnemonics in the moments where I'm not able to think clearly, when I'm too emotional. It's just kind of like a map or a guide for me to kind of get me through, so that when I do process what's going on, I'm able to, all right, I'm able to understand.
Absolutely. That's why I do it like that. It's like, we need skills. We need really practical, easy to remember tools to be able to reference, because when that amygdala gets to kicking, you're not thinking clearly. Your prefrontal cortex is on vacation. Right. So having those skills to kind of pull your mind back into that space and remember and walk yourself through how to interact and how to grieve, how to be more empathetic to other human beings. I mean, that's really all you can ask for. So if anybody's interested in more information, you can follow my Facebook page. I'm on IG, I'm on YouTube. I done put videos on YouTube. I've explained. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for joining us. But I also have on my website, dralana.com. If you're interested in any work with me, I do not do clinical care, but I have a group coaching program that's open to registration, and it'll be for 3 months, March through May, where people can get this education, get this information, have some accountability partner, and start putting these skills into place. I believe in practicing the skills, because the more that you practice, like anything else, it becomes mental muscle memory. And tell them where to find you too.
Yes, you can find me at drdornsychemd.com, drdornsychemd.com. Unlike Dr. Ayana, I don't focus on trauma work. I actually do more ADHD work, as well as work with professional athletes or elite athletes, as well as super moms who parent children with ADHD, which I cannot wait to have you on my podcast, Dr. Alana, because I think that with my super moms group in my community, they struggle with, how do I parent a child who's dealing with a chronic illness, or and others, that comorbidities can be seen as being chronic. So I cannot wait to have you on my podcast. I really do appreciate this time with you today. You have blessed me tremendously. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share, this space with you, and in our communities as well. I think that it's important that we do talk about this, and we a lot of times we may be starting the conversations, but our community members are continuing it within their homes and their field, their circles, their friendship circles, at their church, at their jobs. And I think that we should continue that, because that's the only way we're going to heal, individually and as a community, when we experience trauma. So thanks again. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Black folks need to quit playing like we don't have. Y'all need to quit. Y'all need to stop that. We got more traumas and foolishness that has happened to us, happens to us in an ongoing fashion. So please, let's dispel the myths, the rumors, the lies. All right, well, we'll catch up later. Thank you, sis. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, sis. Love you, honey.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.